people, the time has officially arrived. It is time to discuss Starfield. I am pumped to be sitting here talking with you today. My most anticipated game of the year. I've put about 55 hours into it, and we'll be diving into that today. Thank y'all for stopping by. This is Unnecessary Rambling. I am Brandon Sylvia. And yeah, let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and jump into this bad boy. Don't really know where we're gonna go with this review. As you know, I'm just gonna ramble this bad boy. And I don't even really want to call it a review. Um it, because the game is so damn big, so vast, so much to do that even my 55 hours into it, I don't really feel confident in calling that a review or adequate amount of time to have put into it to consider it a review. So we'll just consider it the 55 hours into Starfield impressions. And I guess that's where we can begin. I completed the main campaign, completed all of the faction quests, and now I'm starting to clean up a little bit of the side content and mess around with some features like some of the more ship building, ship customization stuff that I didn't really do a lot of in my first 55 hours with the game. Didn't really do much outpost building and stuff like that, which I didn't I don't really have interest in a lot of the outpost building. I didn't like that in Fallout 4. That was something that really put me off of Fallout 4. And yeah, already rambling all over the place here, but I guess that is kind of a good basic setup for my feelings with Starfield is that I'm really impressed that this is a game where you can play the main campaign, you can play the faction, side content, and you can feel like you got a gripping narrative experience from front to back without having to go and mess around with a bunch of menial side content or even just it doesn't feel like you have to engage with activities that you don't want to engage with. If you don't want to go off and customize your ship too much, cool, don't have to. If you want to do just that, cool, you can do that. If you want to build a bunch of outposts and farm for materials and scan and mine and do all that shit, cool, you can do that. For me, as you guys know, I am a story driven guy. I want to interact with the story. I want to see the writing, see the characters that they have developed. And that's the thing that surprised me more than anything with Starfield. The writing is really, really good with this. And I'm not the biggest Bethesda fan. The only Bethesda game I've ever finished is Fallout 3. I played a good bit of Fallout 4, put about 15-ish hours into Skyrim. I've just never been hooked by their stories, really. It's always kind of been about the sense of wonder, the awe-inspiring worlds that you're getting to explore and the freedom within that. And I think a really cool thing about Starfield is that even as vast as it is, obviously you're exploring all these different, solar systems and all these different planets. It's a lot of people's main critique with the game right now is that the space exploration is very limited. And I gotta say, that's something that I am actively a fan of. I'm very, very glad they made the decision to limit the amount of space that you are allowed to explore. A lot of it feels a lot more like menu navigation than space exploration. And I totally do see why that would bum people out, people that wanted to just be nonstop in their ship, living in their ship, going from destination to destination in their ship, and kind of avoiding the menu systems altogether. I could see how that would bum people out. But for me, what that ended up doing was, because a big worry that I had with this game was, the feature creep and was the scope of it too large for them to get a comprehensive, cohesive narrative put together inside of this huge game. And I think if they would have focused too much on the space exploration moments, I really do think a lot would have been lost in this narrative. It honestly kind of feels like a Mass Effect scale game at times. If you want to just play the main campaign and the faction quests, like I said, it took me, at least 45 hours just to do that. So there's real meat on those bones, but it feels manageable in a way that I really did not expect this game to feel. And also, I gotta say, it's not a buggy mess. I did not run into one single game breaking bug throughout my entire 55-hour runtime with Starfield. I ran into, it has its Bethesda isms. It's not the most visually stimulating, visually aesthetically pleasing game you're ever going to see. The character models don't look top notch by any means, but I don't think they really look bad. And I think there are moments like the Neon City. I think is absolutely beautiful as soon as you see that city, and the level of interactivity inside of Neon City and inside of these other, kind of like more main quest or faction quest cities is really fucking cool, where almost every shop that you see on the block, you can go inside of it and interact with the different shopkeepers, and at times that'll open you up to brand new quests where you can go out and, say a doctor is having trouble keeping medical supplies stocked up. You can go off and try to bring back medical supplies for the doctor, and there's like little branching paths that you can unlock by just going and interacting with these different shopkeepers inside of these extremely interactive cities that don't feel just like set dressing. But like I was saying, Starfield does have its sore spots. It has its, I definitely have my criticisms with the game. It's not by any stretch of the imagination a perfect game. For as much as I love it, it's a game that's easy to kind of see the blemishes, to see the flaws. And like I said, a lot of that is just down to your loading screens that are popping up nonstop. And like it's really, really bad. It's really bad for a next generation game. It at times you're feeling like you're playing a damn mid 2000s wrestling game. It is loading screens galore. And like we were talking about earlier, I do think a lot of people would look at the space exploration and some of the limitations there as a big negative. I personally really wouldn't look at it that way at all. I actually kind of prefer how they have it set up, but I can, like I said, I can understand that critique. And then you just have your like I said, your annoying Bethesda isms, your weight carrying capacity where you can only carry so much weight. And then if you have more than that, you can't fast travel back to your ship. And it's just like, why in the world is this still a thing? But to be fair, I kind of can understand it where it wants to remind you that you do have items in your inventory that you probably should sell, and you can, give items to a partner, give or put items in your ship's inventory and take some of that weight off of you. But I do think, encouraging you to sell off those items does come into play in a big way later on in the game, where you can kind of negotiate your way through missions, by having enough credits. And that constant reminder of you carrying too much on you and that you need to get rid of it and you need to sell it so you can kind of have an easier path through certain missions when you need those credits. I do think it's important in the back end of the game. That doesn't mean that it's not frustrating as hell at first, especially whenever you're trying to juggle the cause or why this has to be in the game. And you're like, oh, well, it's not realistic for you to carry this many weapons. It's like, well, it's not realistic for me to carry 14 guns, period. What does it matter if I'm carrying 14 or 34? Either which way, I wouldn't be able to carry that many weapons on my person. So I think that realism argument goes out the window pretty quickly. And other than that, I experienced some frame rate dipping pretty consistently throughout the game. Like I said, I'm not the biggest technical or visual snob in the world, especially in a game as big as this with so much freedom and choice in the narrative. So it didn't totally put me off, but I do understand those critiques of the game. Now, for like my overall view of this game. Where am I at? I do think it is one of the best games of the generation. I think that the main quest and those faction quests are some of my favorite missions that I've ever experienced in a game. I love the fact that I'm able to, put my character into this world and totally have the freedom to come up with solutions, figure things out on the fly, and progress through these missions however I want. So I think the game is paced incredibly well. There's so little fat in that main campaign and faction quest in those segments of the game. There's so little fat. Everything is so punchy, to the point, and meaningful that you're just constantly engaged with what's going on. This is one of the most addictive video game experiences I have had in my life. I was playing this like a maniac, man, just binging this game like an unhealthy amount. It gets its hooks in you so quick, or at least it did with me, so quickly, and was just unrelenting from that point forward. And I was actually really surprised by how damn good the moment to moment gameplay is in Starfield. I was really surprised by the first person shooting. It's really damn strong for a game of this scale. It's obviously not a Doom. It's obviously not a Halo, Call of Duty, Destiny, whatever, but it's very, very competent and really fun to just engage in firefights in this game. And that is something I was absolutely not expecting after coming off of my previous, Bethesda games, where I just found the combat to be like the main thing that put me off most of those games was the combat. And I actually thoroughly enjoyed combat. Every time a damn firefight would take place, I was thrilled to engage in it. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that you just have so many cool ass guns, to the point where, like we talked about earlier with the item management, the inventory management, it might even be slightly too much at times, because you're talking about 20, 30 guns that you're cycling between at times. And when you have like these rare and legendary guns sitting in your inventory, you don't really want to sell them. So I mean, there would be moments where in a 15-minute window, I was cycling between, 5, 10 guns, just testing things out to see what fit my play style the best, or what weapons were the most satisfying to use. And sure, that can be a little bit overwhelming, but it's cool to know when you're going out and scavenging and looting that you're gonna find cool ass weapons, and not just random bullshit that takes up room in your inventory that you have to go through and manage, that you don't actually ever engage with at all. And sure, some of that is there, but it's just nice to know pretty much every mission you go out on, you're gonna come back with something pretty cool. But to be clear, I'm not trying to sit here and say this is a 10 out of 10 game. To me, this is a 9 out of 10 game. I think this is what a 9 out of 10 game is to me personally. It's a game that I would love to give a 10 out of 10 to, because I can ignore a lot of the sore spots, a lot of the flaws, but it's to me this is how I look at it. An 8 out of 10 for Starfield. There's no chance I would give it an 8 out of 10. There's no chance I would give it a 10 out of 10. If I was like tasked with reviewing this game for a major outlet, a 9 out of 10 would be 100% where I would settle. There's too many sore spots to ignore it, but it's far too ambitious and successfully pulls off the majority of things it's attempting to pull off. To me, that kind of lands perfectly in that 9 out of 10. A game I would love to give a 10 out of 10 to, but just can't because of some of its obvious flaws. But to me personally, this is undeniably a game of the year contender, a game of the generation contender, even. The kind of difficult because there's two other games that have released this year that are game of the year and also game of the generation contenders that I've already played. But it it's a fantastic, fantastic game. It's a turning point seemingly for Xbox. Hopefully a long line of games of this caliber, maybe not of this scale, but of this caliber, this quality bar, down the line from 2024 and beyond. And I'm just really glad that it lived up to the majority of my lofty expectations and somehow even exceeded them at times. Those are kind of like my TLDR thoughts, and now we can dive a little bit more into the weeds here, get a little bit more into the weeds, dive into the details here. I want to talk about the characters in Starfield because this was really surprising to me how well written these characters were in Starfield. Um, I found Andrasia, one of your companion characters, to be absolutely fascinating, just from like a human perspective, from a psychological perspective. It caused me to do a lot of introspective thinking about the way that I view the world, and it was an interesting spiral that I started to go down with that character because there's a lot of religious themes with Andrasia, and I'm obviously not going to get too deep into anything to spoil anything, but it made me think a lot about the way that I view the world and kind of the fear of the unknown with especially stuff like religion, and how, like the baseline of Christianity, someone brings up Christianity and you're totally, on board, familiar with it. You don't really turn your nose up at it because it's something that you have experience with, or that you have some level of knowledge of. And then someone brings up like a different type of religion, but they have very similar practices to Christianity. They believe very similar things, but you immediately are skeptical of it, or you immediately are a little bit dismissive towards it. And Andrasia's entire character arc is a lot revolving around those themes. And it was just a really, really compelling character arc. And not to mention, she's a fucking smoke show. So you're immediately drawn towards her. And then thankfully, they have a lot of backstory in there as well that makes her more than just eye candy. So we were Bonnie and Clyde in it though, man. We were Bonnie and Clyde in it. The fucking to the wheels fall off, ride or die with old Andrasia. But almost all of your companions are truly interesting characters. Sam Coe, I found his story to be really, really fascinating. He is from the Freestar Collective, and that was I chose that background for my character. So there were a lot of talking points where you're in dialogue where I could pick the Freestar Collective dialogue option, and then you can relate to him a little bit deeper, and he'll open up about things. And the mission that he takes you on from the get-go is just a great mission, and that's one of the missions that really kind of got its hooks in me in a big way. It's pretty early on in the game, but that was one of the moments where I was like, oh yeah, this is hooking me on a different level. And I won't spoil anything, but it's pretty much like a hostage bank robbery type situation. And it's where, well, the mini game for the persuasion mini game, you see it earlier on, but this was the first time where I was like, oh, absolutely, I'm going to completely min max this stat and go and upgrade my persuasion points all the fucking way throughout this entire game, and just try to get through every single encounter by being diplomatic and speaking to people and trying to persuade them to get me to my desired result as quick as possible. But I really liked with Sam, his dynamic was a lot more relating to his family and his I would say turbulent relationship with some of his family members, and then you're trying to go in and mediate that, or at least resolve some of that, so that you can reach your desired outcome. And once again, there's another persuasion mini game that pops up there, and I guess I should kind of explain this persuasion mini game, as that was like, I mean, maybe my favorite. I love that persuasion mini game. I think that thing is absolutely fascinating. To add kind of a gamification to conversation, I think is very, very compelling. And it just, it keeps you it holds you captive, and it makes you feel the agency over some of the more mundane moments, which I don't really feel like they're mundane moments if I'm shaping what's going to happen next, and that's what it allows you to do. And so you'll be talking to a character, and there will be an option to persuade the character that you're talking to in conversation. And when that pops up, you'll see, all your dialogue options. And then just below it, it will be like four, five, six boxes that you have to check off. And to do that, you have to pick the right dialogue option that you think the character that you're responding to will have a positive reaction to. And then when they have a positive reaction, it checks off one of the boxes. And say you had five boxes, now you have four. And the level, you have like easier dialogue options that only grant you 1 or 2 points, and then you have harder dialogue options that'll grant you like 4, 5, 6 points. And but the harder dialogue options, they require a higher persuasion skill to successfully pull them off. So that was the big reason why I invested heavily in persuasion throughout the game, because I love that shit so fucking much. I did the same exact thing with Dragon Age Origins, just totally invested everything into, I believe they called it the coercion stat in Origins. But I find that so fascinating to see, these different ways. And I would constantly, reload save files to make different, even wrong choices at times. I would get something right. I would like to see it, the opposite of it happen, where I did something wrong, and to see what would happen. Like, would this person kill a hostage? Or, I just wanted to see the entire spectrum of what could take place. And I think the faction quests, those are my favorite moments with any of those persuasive tactics. It is like nonstop persuasive tactics in most of those faction quests. I absolutely adored that shit. The UC faction quest absolutely just fucking rules. It's very political, very, you're trying to be as diplomatic as possible to get all these different sides to align with one another for the greater good. And essentially, what you are arguing for is for everybody to join together, to come together to prevent pretty much a dinosaur outbreak. You're trying to eradicate these dinosaurs and wipe their presence off the face of the map. And how you go about getting to that result is fucking awesome, man. There's all these different governing bodies who come together, and you're trying to persuade them to trust the United Colonies. But within that, once again, there is a character that you meet in a crazy fucking family backstory that takes place, and some wildly evil villain arcs that you see unfold. But then also kind of, with most of the interesting villains throughout history, I don't think a villain can be all that compelling without having some semblance of justification for their actions, no matter how deplorable they may be. And you absolutely run into that with this character in the United Colonies quest, and you kind of get to decide his fate as well. And there's also a lot of themes of like trying to figure out where the line is on scientific advancement, and like trying to toe that line of not going too far, but taking the fastest and potentially most effective route to eradicate this dinosaur outbreak. It's not necessarily dinosaurs. I think they call them the terramorphs, but it's pretty much damn dinosaurs. But you have different leaders who feel differently about the scientific research. You have different leaders who feel differently about some of the technology that you find in these locations, and you're trying to be diplomatic and to appease everybody, at least in some manner, to get everyone to come together once again for the greater good of just eradicating these fucking dinosaurs that could cause a total apocalypse. But I think my favorite of the faction quest was one that was on Neon. I believe it was a I think the Ryujin factory, if I'm not or the Ryujin faction, if I'm not mistaken. And my that whole entire campaign with them is a lot more in the vein of like a Deus Ex. It's a lot more stealth based, which I unfortunately didn't really upgrade my character to be stealthy because I didn't early on in the game it didn't seem like that was going to be a viable option. But once I started getting my jetpack and was able to reach different vantage points quicker and could kind of find new ways of maneuvering throughout this world, it really did make me wish that I went with a more stealthier build, or not necessarily a more stealthier build, but just had that option available if the situation called for it, I guess. And I really just didn't have that available. So a lot of those Ryujin missions I kind of struggled with, but it was really cool to, see that more, I don't know, slightly immersive sim-ish elements. I'm not saying it's some deep immersive sim or that those quests unravel with like deep Dishonored-esque mechanics. It's not that at all, but you can, crawl through ventilation systems and find different routes to complete your objective. And it's just it's always, the little things in those stealth missions are always fun, hitting the switch to close the blinds before you steal something, and shutting the door, and it just kind of role playing the scenario, even though you probably won't get caught or you might not get caught, just trying to take all the proper precautions to prevent yourself from getting caught, immersing yourself in that moment, kind of creating the immersive sim experience yourself, even if the game doesn't necessarily force you to have that. It is rewarding just to kind of role play those scenarios. And you could, turn off this fan to jump down into this certain area, or hit the cut the gas line so that the vents are, or gas is coming out of the vents and it makes people clear the room. So you kind of can get a little tinge of that Hitman action if you wanted it. Like I said, it's not deep on that level, but you can get a little bit of that in there, specifically with that Ryujin faction quest. But what I was talking about in terms of the persuasive tactics that I was taking in that quest, there a big focus of that quest is you're trying to develop this almost Neuralink-esque technology, and you are the first test subject for it, and you are essentially getting implanted with the ability to control people's minds and force people to do, if you there's a door that you want opened, you can force someone to open the door for you, a security guard to open the door for you. Once again, it very much allows you to pursue missions in a more stealthy manner. But I'll put up a spoiler tag here because what I'm about to talk about is kind of the final moment of that Ryujin quest line. But it's, I don't think most people will really care about this spoiler because it's going to depend on what you choose to do. And a lot of I'm not even really talking about the big moments. I'm just talking about something specific that I found to be really cool. But everything, the timestamps will be down below so that you can skip the spoilers. But the dope ass thing that I was talking about at the end of that quest is that you have the option to try to convince the executives of Ryujin to acquire or not acquire this company. So you can try to convince them either which way to acquire the company who developed the technology for the mind control, or to not acquire them. And then you also get to decide whether or not the Neuralink mind control program should remain operational. But the big twist there, like I was saying, is that my character is the only person with this mind control technology installed. So while I'm at this meeting, I can use that technology to manipulate people to take my side. And so I'm, maybe once again, maybe I'm immersing myself too much, RPing too much inside of this, but I start thinking, I'm like, oh shit, I think that I'm going to shut down I'm going to acquire the company but shut down the technology, so that way this company can't continue to operate independently to continue developing this mind control technology. The Ryujin company will now have access to it, but I'm also going to manipulate Ryujin to cancel development of this mind control technology. So my brain starts going, okay, I'm going to be the only person with access to this mind control technology. So essentially, I'm manipulating the board with the mind control technology to acquire the company that developed the mind control technology, and then using that same mind control technology to manipulate them into canceling research and development for it so that I'll be the only person in existence to have that ability. And once again, will this come back later on in the story to have any relevance whatsoever? Probably not. But when I tell you I was enthralled, totally invested in that moment, it was a fucking great moment that felt like it was weaving in any direction and I could have went so many different ways. And I don't know, it felt like the more I peeled back and the more I really immersed myself in it, the more satisfaction I got out of it. And from here on out, I'll try to be completely vague and avoid any spoiler details there. I thought that story was so fucking cool and so fun and also just so many possibilities there that I don't really think it's too big of a spoiler anyway. But I'm gonna be as spoiler free as possible from here on. And I guess to talk as vaguely as possible about one other scenario that I really, really loved, and I won't even talk about the factions or anything like that on this one. Um, there's a quest where you are posed with some more, philosophical conundrums that you have to debate internally. Like I was talking about earlier, I think the game is full of shit like that, but this one in particular, it's a lot of, okay, do I align with this company or this organization who is, I guess, somewhat ethical on the surface? They're productive, they get shit done, they pay their employees, but their employees are working to the bone, and this company is involved in deeply, deeply corrupt practices behind the scenes. Do I work with them and allow them to remain, essentially abusing their workforce, but meanwhile still providing jobs, still providing employment and resources to their community? Or do I go in and align with an organization who are blatant murderers, blatant criminals, psychopaths who don't hide at all who they are? They're upfront with you about who they are, and that's commendable. But they are deeply, deeply fucked up, possibly a deeper level of just pure evil than this malicious, shady corporation who is at least providing resources for people, despite the fact that they're also working those people to the damn bone. And it's like, who do you side with in a situation like that? And a lot of the game, like I've talked about this before, how much I love games that operate in the gray, where it's not totally just a morally obvious situation that you're faced with. There's a lot of situations in Starfield that, similar to like The Witcher 3, where there's not necessarily a great outcome. You're just trying to side with the lesser of two evils a lot of times, and that's just reality. And for as silly and fun and jovial as this game can be a lot of the time, it's also rooted in some really real themes and explores that shit very deeply, like I talked about earlier with the religious themes, and here with political corruption and corporate corruption, and who is more evil, the corrupt corporate people or the straight up just psychopaths out there murdering, stealing, and trying to rank up. But they're doing it with a smile on their face, and they're honest as can be when they meet you. Hey, I don't turn your back because I'm probably gonna grab your wallet. But I also really love, once again, staying with the theme of residing in the gray area. I love that there are missions where you align with one of these sides, and you have to infiltrate the other side, and at a certain point you have to pick who you're going to betray. And the cool thing about it is, when you infiltrate this company, you're going out and doing missions with this company or with this organization. You're getting to know these people. You like, there's names associated to these guards now. It's not just AI bot number 45. You actually go on quests and have, bonds that are being established with these different characters throughout the game. And then that moment comes where you have to decide who you're going to betray, which side you are going to align with. And when that takes place, you got to kill a bunch of motherfuckers that and I love that this game they put the name up there, so when you're shooting at somebody it shows you the name and you're like, oh my god, that guy. I just went and did a quest with Mathis. We were developing a friendship there towards the end, a little bit rough around the edges at first, and then we start developing a little bit of a friendship. Oh, damn it, there goes Jasmine. I always liked old Jasmine, and it's like you're developing these relationships, and at a certain point, you have to pick which side, because once again it's residing in that gray area where you are going to establish relationships with both sides of these kind of fucked up companies or corporations. And it's the thing where fucked up people do have redeeming character traits. And so, yeah, even though this might be a group of psychopathic villains, like you still can kind of develop some sort of kinship with them. And when you have to murder them and mow them bitches down, it's gruesome and you feel like a deeper level of emotional stakes in those moments. And even at certain times, like you'll kill a character and they'll go down and kind of like mumble under their breath as if they're trying to communicate with you, and it really does kind of take an emotional toll on you as a player where you're really invested in those moments. The stakes are really damn high. It's just a game that's so easy to be totally immersed in, like just turning off the outside world. And like there was one mission where I was actually taking real notes. I had this like huge dossier report of information on these different characters, and you're going in and trying to persuade them to align with you. And like I'm like, okay, well, this one guy here, he's totally driven by credits, and like financial security is everything to him. And this other person that I'm trying to go in and persuade, they're this influential figure who is very driven by public perception and vanity. So I'm gonna try to inflate their ego so that they align with me more. And like I'm legit taking notes to remember these different characteristics about these people. That way I'll okay, this is what this guy likes. So in the dialogue options, when those things pop up to talk about, money or financial security, I'm throwing those out there at this guy. Whenever this other person, when it's, something about the way that the public could perceive what they if they chose to go in a direction I don't want them to go, I'll talk about how the public may perceive that. And it just made me be like, fuck yeah, dude, I'm gonna, I'm gonna crack this code. I'm gonna get the exact result that I want to get. And it, I love that damn. I once again I talked about it earlier, so I'm not gonna go back and reopen this can of worms, but I just love that persuasion mini game. So I'm always constantly looking for an opportunity to kind of, cheese that essentially. Since I went and just upgraded it to the max almost immediately, it was like I was so overpowered in any diplomatic or debates or any conversation where I could sway something by being persuasive. It was like, you know, just an absolute certainty that I was going to get my desired result. And there is something about the pacing of this story and the pacing of these dialogue interactions where it's so interactive and to the point. And like, you can read through the dialogue quickly and skip to the next line if you're, not in the mood to just listen to the voice acting. And I don't know, it just keeps things feeling active and feeling fresh. And y'all know I'm absolutely not this anti-story TikTok generation where it's like everything has to be 30 seconds and just quick. And I'm not this person who wants absolutely no story, and I'm not this person who despises cutscenes or anything like that. I actually think Starfield would have benefited from some more cutscenes, but from more cutscenes in some of like the bigger moments of this game to raise the kind of just to raise the, I guess, level of importance of some of the bigger moments. I think that the way that they pace the story, like to the point, dialogue encounters that you're actively engaged with because you feel that you are shaping the narrative, and you absolutely 100% are shaping the narrative. This is not just a illusion of choice. There are real choice, real consequences in this game. And but I do think some of the bigger moments in Starfield would have had, a bit of a higher, or a bit of a greater feeling of scale. If you do have a pretty solid chunky cutscene here and there, it doesn't need to be a 20-30 minute thing. But once again, like I said, I am not of this newer generation who hates anything relating to stories. I just played Final Fantasy 16, and some of my favorite parts of that game were the 20-30 minute cutscenes, because it did add a level of intensity and scale to this world that wouldn't have really been possible without these just fully animated, crazy, just absolute spectacle set pieces that they were throwing out there for the cutscenes. And like I said, I'm not saying Starfield needed a 20-30 minute cutscene, but I do think that the story could have benefited from a few bigger cutscenes for some of the more important moments. So I guess I'll just kind of leave it there for my overall thoughts on the story. And yeah, this is a very story driven game. So even when I'm saying, it's active and to the point, and you do feel a level of engagement in this story that you don't really feel from just sitting and watching cinematics. It is still a very story driven game. This is not at all going to be one of those games for people who want to skip story. I mean, you can do that, but I don't think you're going to get much from it. The vast majority of the experience here is in dialogue encounters and talking to people, and learning about the different companions and the different, I should say the vast majority of my experience was that. The vast majority of the main campaign and the faction quests will be you engaging with the narrative and the characters, and that's what I love. And that's the thing I was very, very surprised to see, because most Bethesda games really don't get their hooks in me with their narrative at all. And this is a straight to the point narrative. And like I said, I think it's very much to the benefit of the game that when you're exploring space, you're pretty much just in menu systems, clicking where you want to land, and then going straight to a pretty linear mission. And that is 100% up my alley, because that's more in line with like a Mass Effect game. And trying not to be sacrilegious here, but all I've ever really wanted from Bethesda games were to be more like BioWare games. But to be fair, and I'm kind of joking there, kind of not always a little truth in a joke, but this is, I think, a good marriage of both. There is that sense of scale and that sense of wonder that you can really only get from a Bethesda, from a Rockstar game. And but it also has the cohesive narrative of something that you could expect from like your earlier Mass Effect games, or your Dragon Age games, or your KOTORs and Jade Empires. And so it just kind of landed perfectly on my lap to be a game that was like destined to be appreciated and enjoyed by somebody like me. But like I said, I really went and did just the stuff I wanted to do. I didn't really want to go off, and I messed around with a little bit of the ship customization. I kind of found it to be tedious. I did a mission early on and got just a badass ship out of the mission. It was a faction quest, and I got a badass ship after completing that faction quest, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I got fucking one of the best ships you can get in the game that I've seen so far. So like, I'm a-okay with this. I'm sure there are way cooler ships out there, but I don't know. I even found the act of boarding ships to be a bit tedious, where you have to lock on to the ships, and then you select, you go into, there's like this little menu, mini menu, whatever you want to call it, down below, and you go and you will I think like press X to target the enemy ship, and then you will have to go to the engines, and it'll like auto aim at the engines. You take out the engines, and then you can board the ship, but you have to do all of this in this like first person scan view. And I don't know, I just liked the ship combat a lot more when I was in third person. I wish I could have some way manually did that in third person, but I don't know. I thought that the ship combat was decent enough. I liked manually kind of adjusting my shield levels, and then my, if I was in battle, raising my shield levels, dropping my grab drive levels, upping my laser levels, my missile levels, kind of tuning down the engine and putting more power into my missiles, and kind of adjusting on the fly. If I needed to get away real quick, I'd up the grab drive, try to disappear super quick. And there is a level of fun to be had there, but for me, that just I just thought it was kind of like serviceable. I thought it was decent enough. I'm not sure if I said this earlier. I've been rambling so damn long, I've lost track of what the hell I'm saying. But I did not spend any time with the outposts yet. I did not spend any time mining whatsoever. I find shit like that so boring. I don't want to play any kind of farming simulator when I'm playing a badass role playing game, an action RPG like this. I don't want anything to do with stuff like that. So I didn't engage with that. I don't know if I ever really will. I might, just to see if something cool pops up. I did like decorate I got an apartment. I did decorate that a little bit, threw a bed in there, threw a couch in there, shit like that. But that's just really not, I don't get immersed into stuff like that at all. I know I've been going on a little bit here. I'm trying to go through my brain and think if there's anything else that I want to hit on before I wrap this up. I think I've covered pretty much the majority of my thoughts at this point. Like I said, 55 hours in or so, I know down the road I'll have much more to discuss with you all on the game. But um, I do really like the upgrade tree. I know that's kind of just a random tangent, but I like the upgrade tree a lot. I think it forces you to engage with the mechanics in a more interesting way, where you won't, because a lot of the time in RPGs, I'll load up on skill points, not really notice it, and then just dump them all into one thing randomly. And in a game like Starfield, where you can't reset and reallocate your points, that would be a real bummer if you picked something and then dumped a whole bunch of points into one thing, and you're like, oh shit, well, now I don't even use my pistols. And in Starfield, they set it up to where, say, at the start of the game, okay, I got a pistol, I'm using my pistol. So I get my first skill point. I'm going to go and upgrade my pistol since I've been using that. All right. Well, by the time your second skill point comes around, maybe you've had an assault rifle and shit like that. So they pretty much put in place a system to where if you want to upgrade your pistol again or your assault rifle again, they give you little challenges that you have to complete first. So it will force you to engage with that weapon or with that system in a more in-depth manner to see if that's something you really want to pursue moving forward. And I like that a lot. I like where, okay, I got to get 25 kills with this pistol. And maybe by the time you hit, 15 kills, you got your assault rifle and you're like, well, shit, fuck that. I'm just going to go and upgrade my assault rifle from here on out. I've tested with the shotgun. I've tested with the assault rifle. I like the assault rifle more than anything else. And once again, I think that does allow you to experiment in combat more often. And there are so many dope ass weapons that you're cycling through throughout this game. It's so fun to just test out different things. And I think the jetpack skill is an absolute must. The jetpacking around this game totally changed the way that I experienced Starfield. Just it's so fun to kind of have that uh, whatever you want to call it, Mandalorian, Star Wars bounty hunter-esque feel going on, where you're like tempting fate. Can I really platform to this destination? Like, it provides a little bit of risk in your platforming at times, where you're in this cave and there's this huge jump, but you can get to, your destination, avoiding all the guards if you make this jump with your jetpack. And there's more powerful jetpacks that you get throughout the game. And, as you're upgrading your jetpack, you have less fuel costs that you're spending per jump and shit. And so you'll make that jump and you barely make it, and it kind of feels almost like the old school Tomb Raider games in a bit, where you when you finally clear that jump, you're like, holy shit, thank God I made that. And not to say if you really want to, you can save scum your way through this, and you save right before you make the jump. If you don't make it, you die. Okay, whatever. I go back around and take the longer route to get there. Like, it's not some punishing game whatsoever. There's a level of difficulty in some of the encounters throughout Starfield. Some of the, big firefights, you'll experience some difficulty in, hiding behind cover, trying to get behind cover quickly, and, hitting your trauma pack, hitting your med pack, and there'll be an annoying moment here and there where an enemy shoots through the cover. Like, you're clearly hiding in cover and the enemy will shoot through a wall or something. You're like, well, that's a bit fucking annoying. So you got to run quickly to find a different spot of cover when you thought you were clearly covered. But I just think it's fun as shit, jetpacking around. You're jetpacking in air. You line up your sights, take an enemy out with a headshot. You got an enemy isolated. You circle around to the back. You pop them in the head with a sniper shot. Like, it's just a fun gameplay system. It's really fun to play Starfield, and I'm very surprised by that. I'm very surprised by how fun the combat is in this game. And not to mention, third person's actually mildly functional in this game, which, once again, I've never felt that way about any of the other Bethesda games ever. And third person's okay. It's not the way I would recommend playing, but I actually really liked doing third person for some of my platforming with my jetpack, just kind of getting to see things, or going in third person when I'm roaming the streets. And even, if I'm in a, like if I'm in sort of a enclosed space where there's not too many enemies, I'll just switch to third person to see how the weapon fires and shit. It's not like the approach I would take throughout the majority of my combat encounters, but I honestly, I did not mind my little bit of time that I put into third person. And it's something that I just swap to every now and then to freshen it up a little bit, to have a new perspective while playing the game. I swear I'm about to hop out of your hair, but I just thought of one more feature I want to shout out. They have like the little dead space lines that pop up under your feet. So you'll go to your scanner and the little lines will point you in the direction that you need to go to get to your destination. I fucking love that shit, man. Every game, as soon as I played Dead Space, I was like, why does every game not have this? It makes so much sense. It works within the context of this world because you already do have a scanner, and it gets you to the good shit. That's always been just get me to the good shit. And you can really get to the good shit in Starfield. And I guess those are my parting words. I'm just so happy that you can really get to the good shit, because that was my biggest worry with this game. Was I going to be bogged down with a whole bunch of tasks that I'm forced to do that I do not want to do, when I really just want to get to the good shit and play this epic fucking space adventure, my Han Solo simulator, my kind of forced BioWare experience that I want to get out of this Bethesda game. But yeah, I loved it, man. I really loved it. I'm going to continue to play it. And like I said, to me, it's a solid 9 out of 10 game. It's absolutely a game of the year contender. There's two other big dogs that it's going to go up against this year, and we'll get to that when the time comes. I really don't know where I stand on it, but it's undeniably a game of the year contender. And if this didn't get one of the 6 slots at the Game Awards, I'd be really shocked. I think it's absolutely deserving of that. And no, maybe it's not a Red Dead Redemption 2 or in that pantheon, but it's pretty damn close for me. It really is pretty damn close for me. This will likely end up as one of my favorite games of all time. It's rare that I'm this addicted to something and just keep coming back for more. And so salute to you, Bethesda. I wasn't sure you could pull it off. You hit this thing out of the fucking park. But yeah, guys, I'm going to hop out of your hair. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to my Starfield deep dive impressions, review in progress, whatever the hell you want to call it. I just wanted to talk about this game. I've had such a great experience so far with it, and wanted to share my thoughts. And I've been playing other stuff, and I will talk about other stuff sometime soon here. But that'll be when I give you kind of some updated Starfield thoughts as well. So the next time we talk about this game, it won't be a damn hour long. We'll, talk about it 20 minutes or something like that, and then talk about a bunch of other stuff as well. But yeah, 2023, an incredible year capped off by an incredible studio putting out an incredible game. So not a lot to complain about at all, guys. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Stay locked in, stay glued in to that community tab over there so that you can vote on whatever polls I'm putting up for videos, individual videos that I'll be creating next. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, man, if you like the video and you want to get it out to more people, consider giving a like, dropping down in the comments. And if you have been playing Starfield, definitely hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think about the game. And that's all for me, guys. I will see you good people in the next video. Goodbye.